Oh, hi there. So this is a little life update slash follow up to my previous video where I was like considering, if I should sell my car and update. Yeah, I did sell my car this week. And yeah, I was thinking like 3, 4 years ago, my former self, if it would have found out that I would be selling my car, living where I live, would have been shocked. And I feel, some of this is like the shockwave from the realization I'm autistic. And for quite some time, I just went along and I was very happy because it explained a lot of things in my life, from my past. But partly maybe because the realization happened during the pandemic, I wasn't so much future focused because there was a lot of uncertainty for all of us. But now suddenly, I understand more about how knowing I'm autistic affects my future. And there's definitely some negative effects now. Uh, for example, one thing I had not fully considered uh, was that, I mentioned before that I have been looking for a job. And in my distant past, when I didn't know I was on the spectrum, I could go into those job interviews with full confidence, with the intention that this job will be a ton better. I will not bend and break under stress. I will enjoy all the meetings. And, now sort of that illusion that came from thinking, I was just like everybody else, that illusion kind of disappeared. So, oh my gosh, yeah, the last, couple interviews that I went into, I felt like an imposter. I felt like, I was pretending, I was trying to make the company or the, interviewers believe that I was completely normal and yeah, I would handle all the meetings and, you know, uh, and that I love being social and, just in general come across as neurotypical. And maybe that used to be easier when I didn't know about my autism, when, I was fully rested, going into those interviews thinking that, my next job would be just wonderful and I would do everything right and I would learn from past mistakes. And yeah, now I kind of know uh, that when I struggled in the past, it wasn't that I had a bad boss or I had, a difficult coworker or I had my workload was too big or I took on too large of a workload. But I realize now I will probably always struggle in a typical workplace, and I can probably never do the fantastic job that I always plan to do in my head. Now that doesn't mean that I didn't do a good job in the past. I've never been let go. Except for one time where the company like dissolved the whole department, and I've always gotten great reviews. But anyway, long story short, yeah, the job search hasn't been going that well, uh, and of course with the current situation, the IT market and stuff, it's not a surprise at all. But I found myself, getting more and more upset over it and desperate. And of course, you can't go into job interviews when you're desperate, when you feel just completely beaten down, when you don't have that. I mean, I do like to convey a lot of enthusiasm and fun and confidence in myself in interviews, and that kind of masking has been like exceedingly difficult now. So, my brain switched into, Mayday, Mayday, red alert mode. And, I just started focusing entirely on how can I bring my monthly expenses down. And that's actually been kind of fun. Uh, and I think that's, because the autistic brain loves to work on problems. Now, the problem of not finding a job, that's just too diffuse. There's just too many different options, too many decisions. That's not something you can sink your, thinking brain teeth into. But to bring monthly expenses down, now that's something that you can brainstorm. You can look at a million different things and you can tackle one by one. And I find that this kind of task I actually love, and I've been having fun with it in a weird way, and even like selling my car, and getting rid of a small storage unit I still had and stuff like that. It just felt so freeing and nice, like getting rid of extras in my life that I maybe don't desperately need. And yeah, living without a car for now will suck. Can't lie. The neighborhood where I live, probably nobody, no household is without a car. But all that said, I mean, I do have a couple stores in walking distance, and I looked into some transportation options that I never ever looked into before. For example, in my city, there are these little electric scooters, and while there are not a ton near me, it seems that I can walk, 5, 10, 15 minutes typically to one of those, and maybe that'll be a transportation option. I have a bus line near me that I've never ever, taken or even looked into. And when I go jogging and I, you know, run past the bus stop, it feels like often there's like not so great characters, catcalling and stuff like that. But now I see, or I looked up, and that bus line's actually going to a place with a ton of shopping options and stuff. So that's kind of good to know. I looked into the electric bike option that I think I mentioned in my previous video, and there are actually some options where you can have like Bluetooth alarms that basically lock your bike. I mean, you still need a regular lock, but if anybody jiggles the bike or starts cutting the lock, it would make a kind of a loud beeping noise. So that solves the problem of locking my bike to just run into a store or something and coming back out, which in my city, bikes get stolen like within seconds sometimes if you leave them somewhere. But now I feel that could actually be an option, that I get an electric bicycle, and that'll solve a ton, for example, the grocery store problem. And of course, I can order groceries in. But here I'm already rambling. Let me go into the car selling process, because I wish I would have known that, because I've hated my Kia for so long, and it was making like these subtle but not so good noises from the transmission. I actually went to the dealership and they told me, yeah, that comes from the transmission, nothing you can do about it. And if I would have known that you can sell your car to Carvana and they don't even test drive it, it's crazy. And it was not like a major mechanical fault for the longest time, because it was just the subtle noise that I found annoying, because I hear it because I don't turn on the radio when I ride around. Yeah, but eventually the transmission did start failing some, and I had this big bill getting the car fixed up, and I'm kicking myself now. I should have just, a year and a half ago, just sold the car to Carvana and either gotten a different one or maybe try to go car free earlier. But yeah, if you have a car that you're just absolutely not happy with, and that you would maybe want to trade for something either cheaper or the same kind of range, I would look into Carvana while they exist, and while used car prices are still quite high. And then another thing, Uber. So I did look into, before I sold my car, I did sign up for Uber and was kind of briefly considering, hey, maybe I should just make some bucks on the side driving for Uber. Could even be fun, could even be, help me be social a little bit in evenings where I typically just maybe just sit at home, watch YouTube videos or whatever. But oh my God, Uber currently, it looked to me, once I signed up, once I got accepted, which took a little bit, because actually that company that they use for background checks, they had like that my car was in an accident while I was owning it. I didn't have an accident, so I would almost recommend just sign up for Uber as a driver, on just in case, and just go through the background check process, because I would have never known that my background check has on it that I had an accident, if it wasn't for that whole Uber thing. But yeah, then so I signed up. I turned it on, and it just blew my mind how bad that app is and how shady that company is, sort of. Uh, for example, so the pay from Uber is ridiculously low unless you sign up for these challenges or bonuses where you have to drive a certain amount, and then if you did all the rides you get a bonus. But a lot of people report that if they're running out of time for the challenge and just need like one or two more rides, and suddenly Uber doesn't give them the opportunity to ride, and they lose that potential bonus. And also, I didn't want to get pushed into driving for hours and hours. I figured, hey, maybe I'll just pick up people that need to go from my general area to, another area where I might want to go grocery shopping or pick up some food or whatever. But that idea, especially during like rush hours, is really not doable with the app, because you can't limit the radius of where you pick up people. So the app will always prompt you with like crazy pickups where you have to drive 10 or 15 minutes to pick up somebody and then take them for 10 minutes. And the prompts for accepting rides, they come in so fast and furious if you're opening the app during a busy time. You really only have like a second or two to decide if you want to accept that ride. And that was, in fact, my biggest problem, because I can't make a split second decision. And I also know my town fairly well. So I would look very closely, okay, where does this person want to get picked up and where are they going to get dropped off? And based on that, just knowing the neighborhoods, I kind of always got quickly an idea. Oh, this person wants to get picked up at Walmart and taken home probably to where they live, which is like in a not so good area, or this person is probably staying like downtown at one of the hotels and they are wanting to go to one of those museums. So I could always figure out, maybe in general, what the rides were for, but that did take me, you know 2 seconds for a ride just to look where the pickup and drop off were. And you don't have 2 seconds when you want to consider if you want to accept a ride, because other people will accept it, and then the ride is gone. So yeah, so pretty crazy, and there really should be a competitor to Uber, because the pay is really, it's so low. It's way to make money if you don't know about statistics, basically, and if you disregard the wear and tear on your car. And that matches the stories I read. Like I went on Reddit, of course, and read some, watched some YouTube videos of people who drive for Uber, and it seems like a lot of people drive for Uber, maybe even full time. Maybe they even feel like they're making some decent money, enough to cover rent and other things, but only works if they never have an accident, never hit like a big pothole, never get major damage in their car, don't look too closely at the depreciation of their car. And then the thing that few people talk about is the risk to life and limb, because you're riding typically like in maybe even city neighborhoods that you're not very familiar with, and people everywhere nowadays drive crazy, and you never know what happens. I had 2 accidents in my life, maybe even three. Like one was my fault, little fender bender, and 2 times where people drove into me, and I was lucky. I never got like really injured in any of those, but it can happen, and of course, that's a statistical possibility that I think people who drive for Uber maybe just never factor in. But yeah, maybe it's a factor of me getting older, but more and more I'm looking at, okay, what's the risk of something that it might, affect me for the rest of my life? And yeah, for that reason, I wouldn't again do things that maybe I did in the past. Like in the past, I got on the back of a motorcycle and stuff like that. And now I'm like, I don't even want to risk it anymore. And you learn that kind of as you get older, and you suddenly realize that your body doesn't heal that fast. Even if you just, hurt your arm a little bit yanking a trash can, then you suddenly feel that pain, whenever you make a wrong movement with that arm. So yeah, I'm really glad that I looked closely into driving for Uber and completely ruled it out before selling my car, so I wouldn't have these regrets. Oh, maybe if I could have kept my car, I could have, made some income, or maybe it would have been fun. And I did picture it as fun potentially, but then it's a completely different story if you're like theoretically, oh, if I could, make some extra money Saturday night and ride people around, it could be fun. And it was so fun, like when I was taking Ubers a lot for work, when I was traveling a lot some years ago. But yeah, then especially if you read some stories about what can happen if you drive people around at night in your car, and that's another crazy thing about that you don't have full control over what people do with your car. You might get into difficult situations where maybe the person brings food into your car, or they insist that you stop somewhere, and they just want to run in, and they leave stuff in your car, and then these things. I don't really need that kind of social stress and potential confrontation. But yeah, to me, that's definitely one of the drawbacks, especially if you're on the spectrum. And yeah, and for those of you who remember that I said I can not even turn music on in the car when I drive in the city, because I can't have too many things going on, and I really need to focus on the driving. Yeah, that whole potentially Uber driving was just a crazy idea anyway. But so I sold my car at Carvana. The guy was so friendly, and the whole process was so easy. And I don't even know why I cleaned my car for hours and hours last week, and even that didn't matter. So really crazy. And I'm almost thinking, is there maybe something that I didn't consider? For example, what if China does invade Taiwan, and suddenly we get like a shortage of everything, and then any existing cars that drive would potentially shoot up in price or whatever, then I'll be maybe kicking myself. But in general, I think that gas powered old Kias, just I can't see them being like worth super much 2 or 3 years from now. So at least that money is now safe in my bank, and I need it. So that's pretty good. But yeah, one more thing about Uber. Yeah, the funny thing was, I sold my car, then I walked to the bank to cash the check, then I hailed an Uber to take me home. And I mean, I've taken, I want to say, over 100 Uber rides in my life, and I've never been as scared. And I don't know if that's just a factor of that maybe more people are pouring into driving for Uber with the worst economy, or such. But that young guy, I mean, he was like driving, and he was like mostly looking at his phone. And from knowing the app, I knew that he was just reviewing like drive requests that were coming in. And like he was like just looking really more at his phone than at the high speed parkway that where we were riding. And then we drove into the neighborhood, and there was a roundabout, and he took a sharp left, like how people do it who absolutely don't even know roundabouts. And it was kind of shocking. I mean, that guy just could not drive. But I did take the opportunity to ask him a couple of questions. And from all my research into Uber driving, I found out like how absolutely crucial it is to tip and give those 5 stars. So he got the 5 stars and the tip, which if you are kind of scared for your life a little bit during the ride, is maybe not as appropriate. But But yeah, it's confirmed to me that taking Ubers will be like a last resort thing for me, and I'll try to make do with either those rented electric scooters, getting an electric bike, walking, maybe jogging to get around. Yeah, the most important thing is that I'm feeling better, because once after a week or two of job searching, it dawned on me that okay, maybe I did ruin my career. Maybe I will not find a job. In fact, probably not. I mean, I fell into a vicious depression. I can't remember being that depressed in a long time, and the worst thing about that situation is then you still have to go look at jobs, respond to emails, and also work on my own projects, which usually inspires me and makes me happy. But even that felt like extremely depressing, because I felt I ruined my life by pursuing various projects that didn't amount to anything. So why I'm even still working on this, and like nothing in life makes any sense. And I was like briefly at a really dark time, but now I'm pulling out of it. And it's certainly the money from selling the car helps, and then cutting down a lot of expenses, and then also returning now, feeling a bit better, returning to my projects and going, you know what? I mean, as long as I um, handle my finances halfway decent, I have time to figure things out. There are a few other side effects of realizing I'm autistic, where I used to think I love socializing, going to restaurants, and um, going to a ton of meetups, and traveling. And now I almost feel like, well, if I don't get to travel, not even retirement, if I have to just enjoy all these places that I love on my TV, it is actually not the worst, because deep inside, I do feel that if you can't be happy where you are, you can't make yourself happy by traveling. You can't make yourself happy by eating the most delicious food. Maybe socializing or being with like-minded people does lift your spirits a lot, but even that, of course, can be challenging. Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that only once I sat in the Carvana office, I was thinking, yeah, I guess that really does mean officially I'm not going to date anymore, because you can't date if you don't have a car. Um, what am I going to do? Like meet some stranger for dinner, and then now I'm going to walk to the bus stop, or yeah, nah. But um, yeah, I feel I'll still make that video probably pretty soon about why I'm not dating anymore. Even though I feel like, why do a whole video about it? It it should be enough info that I'm in my 50s now, and dating is just not fun. Uh, it, and that's perfectly all right. I mean, I had my dating times, and you know, but it's just another thing that falls away, and it might makes life easier. And so I'll just see where my life goes from here. Maybe some of the decisions I make now I'll greatly regret, because I feel I'm kind of locking in that I'm not going to try and socialize a ton like I used to do, to feel normal, like to feel I can do normal things. But yeah, like I think this whole autism realization, it purged away a ton. And only now I'm realizing, wow, I have to build my life now in a way that is suitable for me and sustainable. And honestly, I don't feel I'm there yet, because I'm just not happy where my life is right now. But I'm excited to tackle changes now. And speaking of changes, if you have stuck with me that long to the end of the video, yeah, I'm definitely going to change this year, because yeah, the more I look into it, I mean, everybody now is using just green screens with these very clean backgrounds. Often you don't even notice. You go like, oh, this person sits in this wonderful home office, or wonderful, you know, living room with like sparse background and just a few perfectly placed potted plants and stuff like that. And only when you watch a few videos, you realize, that person never interacts with the background. It's probably just a green screen and like a nice background. And I don't like the fakeness, but I can't lie. First of all, it's like visually not great. Like this, gosh, how often has this artwork there fallen off the wall, and then the lines are all crooked, but yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up this rambling slash ranty life update here, and we'll hopefully tackle more substantial topics again in my next videos. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.